Boy, I tell you what, if that music doesn't get you pumped up, I don't know what will. Welcome to the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show. Everyone, we're brought to you by Michelin Tires. When your family's car needs tires, Michelin Tires is what you should seek. We're also brought to you by Butcher Barbecue Products, all the great products from David Bosca and the gang over in Oklahoma. Injections, rubs, marinades, everything you need. Butcher Barbecue Products. Thanks to our broadcast partner, Backyard Smokers Barbecue. Wes Phillips and the gang over there at Backyard Smokers Barbecue on Facebook. If you have questions about barbecue, new, old, veteran, middle of the life barbecuer, Backyard Smokers Barbecue on Facebook is where you should start. Thank you, Jeff Maxwell, back at the remote ranch here in Ottawa, taking your comments. And now, folks, you're going to really want to comment and talk about this subject that we're going to be talking about tonight. I've got a bona fide barbecue expert. This guy knows more about barbecue than, gosh, most of the people. He knows more about the aura of barbecue. He is an expert in barbecue. We'll be getting with him in just a second. Don't forget, you can follow us, the Owl's Nest Barbecue franchise, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. All the shows, if you missed a show and you go, boy, I'd like to see that interview with Donnie Teal or David Bosca or Malcolm Reed or Myron Mixon or Tuffy Stone, all those are back on the YouTube channel. Just go to the Owl's Nest Barbecue YouTube channel and you can see all of those interviews. Click subscribe for me if you would. And just anything, there's a lot of good research that you can do back there. Don't forget the Owl's Nest Barbecue store located in Ottawa, Tennessee, right off of I-75 on exit 11. If you're traveling I-75, if you're like going from Georgia to parts up north, we're at exit 11. When you get inside of Tennessee, we're about 10 miles. After the border, take the split, you go towards Knoxville, look for exit 11, you get off the exit, you turn right at the red light, look to your left, you'll see the Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply Store and Pro Shop right there, right on the interstate. I'm going to introduce our next guest right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Sandridge in the house. I cannot believe this, Kevin, that you are on the show finally.
Yeah, we've been trying to make it happen for a little while, and schedules are what schedules are, and I'm glad we could finally get together.
Kevin is the producer, director, host of Barbecue Beat podcast, and it is, without a doubt, one of the most popular podcasts in these United States. Kevin is in Winter Haven, Florida. I call that the home of the Florida barbecue mafia, because in your town, all those guys, you hang around with a pretty powerful group of barbecue competitors, and I guess seriously, you could pick up the phone and go to any of these guys' houses and get a question answered, where I have to call them and ask them to come on the show or text them. And you just drive over to the house, say, "Hey, Rub, show me how you do your prime rib that's the best in the world." Or, "Hey, Matt, show me how you make that peach barbecue sauce that's so good." Yeah. You're just right down there with them.
Yeah, Jim Elzer over in Lakeland as well.
Sweet Smoke Q.
That's right.
I've got his stuff in my store.
Swamp Boys Barbecue, Hot Wachulas, and Sweet Smoke, all within 30 minutes or so. I mean, Rub actually lives as the crow flies, like a mile and a half to 2 miles from my house. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's been nice. Kind of coming up through the ranks, so to speak, with guys like that right around you that you can kind of learn from. And I've had the pleasure of attending classes hosted by all three of those gentlemen, and they know what they're doing as their competition results and products show. So yeah.
Jim Elser had a GC last weekend. Boy, that dude can cook.
Yeah, I think RGC actually
Yeah,
RGC
RGC. Yeah.
at Banjo BQ, that was no weak field he was competing in either. The bigs of the bigs were there because everyone was hungry to compete. So that was great for him.
We've got his stuff at the store. It sells great and super guy. Okay, Kevin, I'm going to connect you to me. I always like to do this when we start out with our guests. There's always a connection that we have, okay? And you don't know what it is, but I have found it. Kevin went to Florida Southern College in Lakeland, Florida.
Hmm.
Famous alums, other than Kevin Sandridge, Rocco Mediate, the last person who challenged Tiger Woods in a major at the 2010 U.S. Open.
Hey, golf team at Florida Southern's no joke. Lee Jansen, Masters champion.
I was just going to say Lee Jansen, U.S. Open champion. I don't think he won the Masters.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter though. He was on my list. 13 national championships in golf, by the way, for your alma mater. In case you're wondering, I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, at any school. I mean,
When you don't have a football program, golf and soccer are huge.
and you know what is weird? That your school and the local arm of the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, their nickname is the Mocs.
There you go. Moccasins, go Mocs.
Yeah, and the nickname of Florida Southern College is the Moccasins. Now, is your mascot the Big Shoe, the Big Moccasin? Ours used to be a big shoe. I'm not kidding.
No, that sounds about like what is it? The universe. There's a junior college in Arizona, and they're fighting artichokes. Yeah, yeah, that's
This years ago we had a big moccasin that used to run around the basketball and football courts, but now
yeah, no, no.
they changed it and it's a bird now. It's the mocking bird, and they shortened
Oh,
the
okay.
name.
So
They
we're the
shortened the name
snake.
to the Mocs. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're the
yeah.
moccasins. So, but isn't that weird? It's such a weird name for a team, and for two schools to have it. It
It
just.
is. What's even weirder, Florida Southern is a Methodist affiliated
Hmm.
institution.
Yes, it is.
Um, and you know, I don't have a single positive vibe coming at me from a water moccasin. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing redeeming. In fact, spiritually speaking, it's like the antithesis of everything. I mean, the
Yeah,
origin story in Genesis pretty looks
yeah.
down pretty poorly on
Here, eat this. It won't hurt
snakes by
anything.
some accounts.
Yeah.
That's right.
The most famous alums, though, are there's a couple of them, and I'm going to Carol Jenkins Barnett. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it
Yes,
does.
it does. Her
The
husband,
famed
Barney.
famed Publix family here in
Yes.
Florida.
Hmm. She built several buildings on the campus.
Yeah.
Estimated worth $2 billion.
Yeah, she's not doing too bad.
No,
No,
grocery
I think.
biz has been good to her. Every time I get that sliced ham, now I'll think about her.
Yeah, I think she actually also her name's on a recently constructed women's and children's wing of the Lakeland Regional Medical Center. So
Mm,
that's good PR, good vibes.
absolutely, she does a lot of good stuff. Also, famous alum Jim France. You're shaking your head. Who's that?
I'm like
Chairman,
I'm pulling for that one.
CEO of NASCAR.
Oh, well, there you go.
Brian France's uncle, who
Okay.
probably won't be invited for Thanksgiving this year,
I,
probably.
I'm not going to get the invite. Nope.
Net worth 1.8 billion. But this is what connects us, Kevin. Back in 1938, the president of your college, Dr. Lud Spivey, sought out the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright, and he asked Mr. Wright to modernize the campus and to build the buildings in his vision of what a college campus should be. And Frank Lloyd Wright built several buildings on your campus, and it is, matter of fact, the largest accumulation of Frank Lloyd Wright buildings anywhere in the world.
That's right.
And let me tell you what connects us now. And we're like brothers. I mean, I mean, we're just
Okay.
Frank Lloyd Wright designed the building that I go to work to every day of the week. My gas
Yeah.
station. My gas station.
That's
Frank,
awesome.
my gas station was built in 1967 by the Chevron Oil Company, the old Standard Oil of California. Frank Lloyd Wright designed several service stations before his death in 1959. And our service station was built based on his drawings after his death.
Cool.
So every time you see a Chevron station, a Phillips 66, you know those old Phillips 66s with the canopy that kind of goes up, and they had that one pole sticking out there that was crisscrossy or something like that. You're
Right.
probably, I don't know, you're probably a little younger. I know you're a lot
No,
younger
I'm
than I am.
I'm a big fan of actually. My great uncle owned a Gulf station in Florida, sorry, in Virginia. So it's one of those things where I'm always kind of looking at it, and I teach history. So
Oh,
architecture is my thing. I
yeah.
love it.
So your campus, that where your heart lives, as mine lives in Knoxville at the University of Tennessee, you have Frank Lloyd Wright connection and me. So we
There you go.
we should visit each other at Christmas time.
That's
All
right.
right. Now, what we're going to talk about tonight, though, is going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks everybody is piling in here. Great, I appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff, so much. And Brandon Newman says he loves my shirt. Thanks. I want to be another shout out to Backyard Smokers Barbecue, Wes Phillips and the gang on Facebook sharing the broadcast too. We really appreciate it. What Kevin and I are going to talk about tonight, and I don't know if you saw it. Now, if you saw the beginning of the show, I kind of did a tribute to her. The Netflix series, the Chef's Table, has done a series on, well, I'll say barbecue slash live fire. And I was watching it the other night, and I thought, this is so good. I want to talk about this with somebody. And Kevin, you came to mind because I listened to your podcast, and you're so knowledgeable about the history of barbecue, not only barbecue present day competition, but the history of barbecue. I wanted to get you in here and talk. Let's talk about this. And let's start with the episode. We'll start with episode one, and that was
Sure.
Tootsie Tomanetz from Texas. If I'm sure if you would be kind enough, Kevin, to give everybody the background on Tootsie, and just in case we need to catch up a few people, but and I want everybody to chime in the chat too and tell me what you thought, and I'll try to lean over here too, Kevin, while we're talking, and if they have questions for you, I'll grab them. Okay.
Well, I mean, one of the you talk about barbecue history knowledge, preeminent individuals out there right now as far as barbecue history is Daniel Vaughn with Texas Monthly Barbecue, and I was so pleased to see that. I mean, of course, they're going to reach out to him to provide a lot of the backstory there,
Mm-hmm.
and Tootsie and her husband both. I think after a time, her husband initially, but then she followed up with worked in a storefront there, in Texas, and over time she sort of started to pick up little tasks in the store, ranging from seasoning meats to watching over them to eventually taking over a large part of what was happening there, from what I understand. And he again, this the Chef's Table series is so great because it contextualizes the figures they focus on. It's not just them in the kitchen. That you get a little bit of what they've gone through, different trials, tribulations, life lessons, journeys, what have you, to get to where they got to the point where they're on the show, right? It's not just like, here's a great person, here's what they do next. You
Right.
get the storyline, and so as you know things progress with Tootsie, like her husband ended up having a stroke after getting some, I think it was like an intravenous sort of scan done of some kind, and
Carotid artery.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And he really, though he eventually recovered, she had to stop. They had to basically put everything off at the store. They had purchased it over time, and they had to, that all went by the wayside, just so she could look after him. And when he finally did pass away, you know, she needed connection. She realized how much she liked working with people. And a friend of hers said, well, just come work at the local school
Mm-hmm.
and in a custodial fashion. And she quickly became, you know, a very steadfast fixture of that school community. And sometime after that, she had an offer basically to, I think it was Carrie Bexley, right, decided to purchase um, an older building there and wanted to make a go of it with barbecue. And so
Yeah.
he ended up basically saying, hey, look, I can't start a barbecue place in Lexington and not have Tootsie involved
Yeah,
because
he was worried that if he started a barbecue place,
bad juju. That's
yeah, and
right.
then if Tootsie wasn't a part of it, because he had gone to her place as a child and
That's right.
remembered purchasing food, and we have to remember too. Now this lady, she's 85 years old. It's not like she's not like she's 35. I
Yeah.
think I'll, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
not some tragic thing. She is 85 years old. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, no, I mean, she was pretty, I loved it, man. She really said that, you know, they were going to open Snows. They call it Snows because I guess when before Carrie was born, I think his mom and dad were talking to his older brother at the time. Hey, like, what do what, I don't know if it was what kind of baby do you hope it is, or what do you want when, it rounded out to where he said, I want a snowman.
Oh,
And so when Carrie was born, he that got the nickname Snowman, and that's where Snows comes
oh,
from.
okay.
Snows
I didn't.
barbecue, right?
That wasn't part of the show. That's some good information.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, well, so why is it called Snows? And of course, there you go.
Yeah.
But you know, Tootsie told Carrie, look, this can't be like a deal where you start this up and I come work with you, because I don't think it was ever a case of work for you. I'm pretty sure they had a agreement like from the jump,
Hmm.
because this wasn't her first rodeo by any means, as we just explained. But she's like, you got to be in it to win it, basically. And he said, look, if I tell you it's going to happen, that's in stone. It's going to happen. And so I think they set it up initially to coincide Saturdays only because that's when the livestock auctions were taking place, and they knew that, that would be a good day to have it. It was never like I mean, I think it's still one day a week. That's it.
Yeah.
Saturdays is it.
Saturday
And so
mornings.
and just yeah, like the way they outlined, you know, the work that Tootsie started to do. I think she was actually in her mid to late 70s when she started with
Hmm.
Snows. But I mean, waking up at, I think she said she say she woke up at 1 in the morning?
Yeah. She says she works as a custodian still at the Giddens High School, the home of the
Right.
Bisons, and she says when she goes to bed on Friday nights, she sets her alarm at 1, and
And she's
then
there by 2.
and she's there by 2 the next morning.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Now,
what it
if I
was.
set my alarm for 1, I had to be in bed at 5 the night before, and she's not in bed by 5.
No,
And
that's wow.
at 85 years old, still doing this.
Well,
And
and doing work that would, I mean, I'm 47. She's doing work that would give me aches and pains in a heartbeat. I mean, this is the Texas Hill Country direct heat application of cooking on those block pits with the coals shoveled burned down and shoveled underneath, the proteins. That's it always makes me think of Rodney Scott's style of cooking on, in
hmm
Carolina, that direct heat application. And um, again, just like Christopher Prieto at Prime Barbecue now over in, I think it's Knightdale, North Carolina, you know, he's got, you know, he knew he wanted to do it the same way as well. You burn the wood down, make your
hmm
own coals, and go it that way. That is incredibly labor intensive, and never mind, you can't walk away from what you're cooking for very long. You have to be like on it.
if you think a stick burner, side firebox,
Hmm.
fire going into a vessel is tough to run. Just try shoveling coals all night. She actually picks the coals up with a shovel, and then she walks across the room and they spread these coals under the meat it's like a big Weber kettle. It's not round. I mean, it's square, of course, but that's what you're cooking. And the amount of meat that she cooks in the documentary, hundreds of pork steaks.
Yeah, after
Chickens.
2008,
Yeah,
when they became the #1 joint in Texas for barbecue, I think it was 2008.
yeah, it was.
It's just that the sheer quantity of food they had to start putting out because of the numbers of people visiting was you're not kidding. Those pork steaks, I mean, and there's like like zero space between each pork steak, and these are thick. I mean, these aren't skinny little cook in a minute pork steaks either.
They look like I've seen pork butts at Publix, cuts of meat called pork butt at Publix that were that thick.
I know.
Seriously, serious talk.
Yeah,
And
not much different. That's true.
I was listening, and I thought, and I'm like you, Kevin. I thought having Daniel Vaughn as kind of the background historian on all this was a incredible use of talent there, because if anyone hasn't had a chance to listen to Daniel Vaughn, he as far as Texas barbecue goes, he is the guy. And I heard him one time on an interview talking about how barbecue in Texas used to be a morning thing. So this opening up in the morning is kind of a tribute to the old Texas ways of barbecue. They said they used to buy it in the morning, and they would take it home in the afternoon and eat it for lunch and dinner. So it's kind of a weird. We look at it now as weird, but back in 1890, 1910, I'm sure it was, the way they did things. But having him there to explain everything that went on, as far as the timeline, having a few people line up before 2008, and then all of a sudden, people are making pilgrimage to Snow's Barbecue in Lexington, Texas. And he said in the video, in the documentary, he said they're there for one thing. He said it's for the way this food tastes so differently, but to catch a glimpse of Tootsie Tomanetz running those pits.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you watch this thing and you just see this person, I don't know about you, Kevin, but I was just, I was amazed. My mother is 88, and she still mows the grass. And
Oh my.
yeah, and there are people like that just, I think, looking at this thing, and she when she had the personal tragedies, number one, of her father or her husband dying. They had to sell the store. She had to stay home, and she said she was so lonely, and that's why she took that job at the school. And then when her husband passed away, she went to work at the barbecue place still, and I think that's where she found solace, was at her job more than at home. And then her boss, Carrie, the guy that owns the place, I don't know if it's with her or the guy who is Snowman, had Herschel come. That was Tootsie's
By her son.
Her son.
And they weren't super close. Like
no.
they didn't see eye to eye on a whole lot. That's
And
how
you could
she
see
put
that in
it.
her eyes when she talked about that.
Reading between the lines, you
Yeah.
could tell that I'm not saying they were estranged, but they were like not super close. Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell she didn't approve of much that this young man did,
Right.
ever. And he threw them back there. And Kevin, I wonder if he didn't do that on purpose. Because there's a lot of guys out there are really smart, and we don't know they're smart, but they're smart. And
Crazy like a fox.
yeah, and I wonder if he invited him there because he knew her heart needed healed, and thought that maybe her son could do that. And in the documentary, she talks about that, how they did over.
They talked it out.
And it was
Yeah.
a beautiful scene while they worked the pits. They talked it out, and she didn't say, it wasn't like, oh son, I understand. It was like, you're an
It wasn't
idiot.
overnight
You're an
either.
idiot.
Yeah,
Get off my back, mom. No, you're an idiot. It's
right.
she didn't say that, but it was you could tell it was that kind of a friction conversation. And then pick up the story what happens because this is where I think her life really changes.
Well, are you talking about just how
What
they
happens
started to
what
kind of
happens to
become
what
a?
happens to Herschel, her
Oh,
son.
well, after they'd become this kind of more or less like a well-oiled tandem, like
Yeah,
working well together. And I want to say this real quick. Any lasting change in life, I think Steve, you'll agree, it doesn't happen without a lot of application of two things: heat and friction, right?
hmm,
I mean, look how the Earth was formed for any evidence if you're curious. But my point being is that over that amount of time they spent together, they grew much closer, and then she finds out from him that he's got brain cancer.
yeah,
And I don't know if you've personally known anyone who's gone through that. Steve, a really good friend of mine, his wife went through that and ultimately passed from it. And that that was tough for me personally to watch that part of, the the segment of that documentary. And you know they I don't really know how to put it. I was just, in fact, as I think back to it, it's one of those deals where here she goes again through one of, losing a spouse and losing a child are both terrible events to take place in someone's life, but just nat- the natural way of things isn't to go
right,
to have your child leave this earth before you do, right?
right.
So I can only imagine after they had grown closer, through the application of their talents and skills at those pits, as you said, and then he eventually succumbs to his illness as well. And then I think that's when she really, because early on when the 2008 list came out and they got popular and people wanted to get their picture with Tootsie, I think she wasn't loving it at first. She just kind of wanted to be left
Mm-mm.
alone so she could do her work. And I think after her son passed, she realized the healing power and the connectivity of the people that truly wanted to show her love by honoring the work that she did and really being sort of part of what she and Carrie had built there at Snows.
Yeah, and let me just say this: that Kevin and I are just we're commenting on these observations on the things that we saw in the documentary, and I know real life does not always parallel documentary. So if there's something that we don't know about,
Sure.
forgive us, but we're not privy to the private life
Yeah.
of Tootsie and her family. But the documentary was so poignant of pointing out that these life changes that this woman went through. And Kevin, I've been around, and I am one. If I am a workaholic, and I've been around other people that are workaholics, and I believe in my heart that Tootsie Tomanetz, she is a workaholic. She cannot not work. And there are people that on this earth, I know I would be one of them. If I retired, I wouldn't last long because there's a drive I have
Right.
and I enjoy being at work. And there have been moments in my own life where the only place I found solace was at work. If you
Sure.
see what I'm saying, is a place where I feel the most comfortable. Not that I don't feel comfortable around my family, but sometimes, and I think that's what I could really relate to Tootsie in that respect. That after her son died, she was at the work the next Saturday. And even
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel Vaughn says he asked her, "What are you
What do you do?
doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
she
what.
told him, that I've got to. You don't understand. I've got to.
That's right.
Yeah,
And again, having Daniel do the work that he did for Tootsie's segment, you know, he he doesn't just know about her. They're good friends. He
hmm,
knows her,
yeah,
and that personal that really just you know struck home with the way that he talked about it. And I will say this as an aside, one of the best quotes, and I think they actually maybe used it in the intro that Daniel said is, these pit masters in Texas, they're not shy about telling you what they do and how they do it. They'll give you every little tip and almost a play by play of how they do what they
yeah,
do. then they'll sit back and look at you and say, "Good luck."
Good
You
luck.
know, like, yeah,
Here comes you one. Yeah.
that's right. But yeah, just great. Like one of the things that I did a little digging into the origins of Chef's Table in general. Did you know that back, I think it was 2015 when they started the Chef's Table sort of vehicle. Um, it was again just 3 years after the Jiro Dreams of Sushi deal, that that executive producer David Gelb he directed. They pitched it to a lot of different networks. This idea of Chef's Table, and most passed very quickly on the idea, saying no thanks, primarily because it was a food show
Hmm.
with no host, and they
Right.
couldn't wrap their brains around how they were going to be successful marketing and airing a food show with no central host figure.
Hmm.
And and Netflix was the one that took a chance. And here we are 5 years later, and they're still planning episodes to film, and it's pretty impressive.
Well, if you nowadays, if you have a food show and there's not a guy with blonde spiky hair screaming and yelling, pick the oregano, pick the oregano, and if there's another guy, the world's greatest host, saying, "Come on and beat me," it's just not interesting to them. And
Well,
these things are these. Chef's Table is on
there's a
such a
place
there absolutely there is, but
for
Chef's
everybody.
Table is on such a higher
Oh
uh,
yeah,
production level.
just
Uh,
way, way, way elevated. I mean, it's just in my the way I looked at it is like I you mentioned, you know, three guys that I'm pretty good friends with: Rob Bagby, Matt Barber, and Jim Elser.
mhm.
Right. So I know the time, effort, and and the sweat, and in cases blood that they put into learning and honing their craft.
Hmm.
I never felt like on any of the shows that they have all been on that they've been on a vehicle that honors that, like the Chef's Table vehicle honors the people they focus on. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because it's the other stuff's kind of so gamified,
Hmm.
like you said, that it doesn't really take time to really get some backstory, let us get to know the person. Like, just real quick, like that. I We talked about this prior to coming on live, but you know the the portion of the show that dealt with Lennox Hasty, like Tootsie, every single episode, like Tootsie's episode, the one with Lennox Hasty, the one with Rodney Scott, and to an extent the one with the Rosalia, right,
Hmm.
out of the Yucatan Peninsula, they all dealt with some sort of level of being sort of insecure, doubting yourself, having some sort of like life story, sort of that's either tragic or in some other way, like filled with a sense of loss and having to recoup and regroup from that.
Hmm.
That's just, I mean, the passion there is really what drives the series, and I see to see that levied against you know the live fire cooking world, which I mean, Instagram's got a lot of great pictures,
Hmm.
right? And everything's kind of a little showy. And there was flashes of that in Lennox's episode, but it wasn't flash or show because it looks good. It was flash or show that comes from that kind of French trained militaristic kitchen precision that he came up with.
And because what he does is so freaking incredible,
Oh my gosh.
uh, you know,
Let's just, man, what was your take on that? Like, walk us, give us the overview. Since I did Tootsie's, give us the overview of Lennox's episode, Steve.
I thought his intense demeanor. I don't know if he was acting that out or if that was the way he
He had a
is.
chip on his shoulder a little
Yes,
bit.
yes, and this
Yeah.
and for people that who may not have watched it yet, make sure you watch all four episodes because they're all equally as good. But this Lennox Hasty, he's in a French trained guy. He's from England, and he has a place called the Fire. I think it's the Firebox, or the Fire Pit, or Fire Door,
Fire,
Fire Door,
fire door.
Fire
Yeah, it's
Door
in
in
I wrote it down. It's in Surrey Hills, Australia, which
Yeah.
on the map, if you're looking at Australia, it's the southeastern coastline, kind of between the Gold Coast, where our mutual friend, I think Ben Arnott with Smoking Hot Confessions podcast
Hmm.
is from, and then down where Victoria. So kind of halfway between each part of the area. So yeah,
I
so
remember seeing him on an Anthony Bourdain episode in No Reservations. It was a long
yep,
time ago.
yep.
This guy cooks everything with fire, no electricity, no natural gas, no LP gas. Um, Everything. It's from steak to blackberries to any everything you order at this funky restaurant he has is cooked
Caviar,
by him. Yeah,
caviar,
caviar.
salad,
Yeah, and
all kind. Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's so busy when he throws. And it made one thing I heard the one lady that they were interviewing, the blonde lady. She said that if and the guys down at Grill Grade, I had a long conversation with today. They ain't gonna want to hear this, but he said Lennox Hasty said if a piece of meat has a what do you say a dark stripe or a dark place on it or something,
Right.
it's a
He,
tragedy. He called
he's
it a
failed.
tragedy.
That's right.
So
That's right.
if he wouldn't be a fan of the SCA and Brad
That's
Galloway
right.
and the
That's right.
guys. He's
And
not turning the meat 45 degrees and setting it back down and patting it. I
right,
don't know how he
but
does it,
but
but
but that to me that's so pan seared like steel skillet pan seared nice delicious cuts of beef in the French style. It's not about those sear marks, and so he's bringing the smooth excellence and precision of like French style cooking in many cases, and he's incorporated some other things like again you mentioned the Bourdain episode. That's when he was with his mentor at the time, the Victor Agenzones. I think it's like a ex-Bari in the Basque country of northern Spain, and he was kind of in the background.
hmm
And at the time, I remember thinking, "Oh, that's just another Spanish guy, whatever." I had no clue what this guy was about,
right.
and now we're getting his backstory, which is so neat. But that even and Meathead does a good job of talking about the Maillard effect. That pan seared steak. That's
hmm
still my favorite. Like a skillet steak is my preferred way to eat a steak.
hmm
Honestly, the crisscross hash marks are great. They look really cool, but yeah, I want all that browning all over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you want the hard crust.
and he's
Uh,
cooking 200-day aged
yeah,
beef, which is a
yeah.
whole nother crazy part of that episode. That's yeah,
That was insane when they showed all that beef hanging. 200-day aged beef had some funky. He put was that what was he? But some sort of a fat he smeared on that
used
stuff.
melted fat
Yeah,
back onto it to protect any areas that might be kind of at risk during that aging
that may be
process.
part of the process. I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
it
know
was.
about
It's
aging
kind of
it.
like what you put sometimes on, with the charcuterie guys doing like, prosciutto. They'll
Hmm
mix, rice flour and some other components to put. After a while, they'll put it on the exposed meat side of that ham to kind of seal it off as
hmm
well. So yeah,
the video on the Lennox Hasty documentary was incredible because
so
it's
good.
just fire after fire after fire, and
And the mechanisms he built. I mean, he's pulling coals out of this wall of like almost like blast furnaces that they said
hmm
it was so hot it could melt
yeah,
glass.
and
That's just
that's
crazy.
where he starts all of his other fires from.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's
it,
and it's fine dining to order. So it's not like I'm cooking a prime these cuts only. So I'll get used to these cuts.
mhm.
It's like you said. It's everything from cuts of protein we're used to seeing to more delicate things like berries and caviar and
Proms,
lettuce,
shrimp,
prawns. Yeah.
proms,
Yeah.
all that stuff,
And none
seafood.
of that stuff is cooked at precisely the same temperature or for the same amount of time. It's not like you're throwing fish and French fries in the oven at 400 and letting it go. It's just, yeah,
And I liked what he said. He says you never control the fire. He said you just maintain the fire, you
It,
guard the
it
fire.
controls the
Yeah,
situation. You
yeah,
try to work with it. That's
yeah.
right. That was
So,
interesting.
getting
That's like
back,
that scene in Backdraft with the crazy guy and like, yeah,
yeah.
Donald Sutherland's character.
If and tell you, I tell you, I believe that too. Kevin, a few years ago we had a big fire at my gas station, and
Yeah.
if you don't think a fire has a personality, sit 30 yards and look into a garage, and you can almost see its eyes. I mean,
Wow.
it's an incredible picture of the way a fire dances, and the only thing it's doing is it's looking for oxygen,
That's
and
right.
and
Wants to
that, and it,
feed.
and it will go anywhere to get it, and it,
Well, look at what's happened in
and that
California
yeah,
right
that's when
now.
it becomes a monster.
Oh,
I mean, we're
God.
talking fire. We're not talking about our little pellet cooker fires in the
Burn
pod,
pot.
our little Myron Mixon water cooker
That's right.
fires. We're not talking about that, man. We're talking,
That's right.
and that's why this guy cooks. That's why he's
Yeah.
cooking. I mean, he's cooking on ferocious fires. Getting back to Tootsie, at
Yeah.
the very end of the documentary, when her son passes away,
Mhm.
she has to go back to work, and she especially goes to Snow's because that's probably where I'm sure she feels most comfortable, and
Sure.
the people, she was amazed at the patrons that were coming in. I'm
Mm.
sorry for your loss. She said she was just overwhelmed and couldn't believe that many people cared, and we never know how many people really care for us
Yeah.
until we go through a tragedy,
Do
and
you remember the one lady that said, "I will forever love the memory of your son because when I was here with my two kids, he gave them each a silver dollar."
yeah, and she didn't know that.
No.
She didn't know that, and she probably felt a lot of pride in that. She probably thought maybe, maybe I've reached him into a level where he has become a better person, and but you could tell that she loosened up to the crowd, and you can see recent pictures of her. She's got a little. I don't know if you saw the thing I played at the beginning. I pulled some
Yeah.
pictures offline. She got a little swagger now,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
she had to care for her husband for so long, and then
Right.
care for her son. She said that when her son had to go to a nursing home, she went there every day because he couldn't walk. So
That's right.
she came to love him so much. Of course, a mother always loves her son. There's that saying a mother will say, there's nothing you can do to make me not love you. And she went to that nursing home every day and cared for him. So I think Kevin, she finally got to go, I'm all alone. And remember at the beginning of that documentary, she said, I can take care of myself.
That's
I'm
how she
used to
was
that.
raised,
Yeah,
self-sufficient.
yeah,
That's right.
I'm used to this. And I think
Mm-hmm.
she finally got to exhale and say, all right, I'm gonna be Tootsie the celebrity now. It's my turn.
And and I'm gonna be okay with reaching out and connecting with others to maybe get a little bit of assistance and
Mm-hmm.
help.
All right.
Like that healing power that the people who come to see her do her thing at Snows is just it's pretty powerful.
Hey, we got time. It's the internet. Let's talk about the Rodney Scott episode.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
Rodney Scott, of course, the
so
Ho
great.
Ho cooker from Hemingway, South Carolina,
Mhm.
opens up a restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's
Mhm.
apparently just a boom town for him. Of course, he's a Beard Award winner, which is very unusual. I think Aaron Franklin was a nominee. I think he got to taste it but didn't get it. But Rodney Scott got
Mhm.
it, and the documentary that they do on Rodney is you talk about I'm going to say rags to riches because I don't know his situation now, of course, but you could tell his situation on the rags part. You know it. You know.
Oh, well, you talk about looking up at, and actually, Dr. Conyers, those of you who watching right now, he's the NASA rocket scientist
Hmm.
who also does whole hog cooking and actually grew up in a neighboring county, I think,
Right.
right there next to Rodney Scott. Told me that story that we saw in the documentary before I saw it in the documentary about Rodney saying how he would look up at those airplanes, those jets, airliners going across the sky and
Hmm.
wonder where they were going, what kind of people are on them, can they see me where I am all the way down here, and Yeah, I would say rags to riches 100%.
Yeah, Roger Scott talks about he was alone a lot when he was a child, and he's very, very
Yeah, he's the only child.
yeah,
Yeah.
only child, a very introspective self uh, coming out party that he had. I thought for this documentary, he didn't want to work. The the most the most chilling fact or part of the episode was when he graduated from high school and all
Mhm.
his friends were going to go out. And his dad says, "You got to be at work at midnight tonight to cook
And the
hogs.
girl, what the girl said to him.
Yeah, you'll be nothing because you're not going anywhere except down the road to cook them hogs." And then
That's
his
right.
dad said, "You need to be at work at midnight." Now, could you imagine your graduation night from high school or college or anything, any big deal, where your dad says, "You ain't going nowhere. You're going to go to work." And it's not like you're going to go sit in front of the computer and broker freight. You're
Oh no, you're
going
gonna work.
you're
Like,
going into a hot
yeah,
room
yeah.
and get greasy
And the
and
margin of error is like,
yeah, and
because that's the family's income you're
poke
messing with. Yeah,
poke dead pigs all night.
that's right.
And welcome to the family, son. Um,
Real life. Yeah.
yeah,
Y-
and then when he had to, I really connected to him when he was talking about he had that fire.
mm.
It burned. It ruined his business on a Thanksgiving Day. He said he had 24 hogs,
Oh, they were
uh,
loaded up.
yeah, what 40 or 50 turkeys, and
Yeah.
the pit burned down. And
Well, pork fat and fire, that is no joke.
oh no, it's people
Oh
start
man.
fires with it.
Yeah.
People. I mean, that's what people pit guys. They soak the brown butcher paper in. That's what they usually start their fires with. Um, and then take it up from there, Kevin, because this guy
It,
Jack, what was his last name? His Rodney's partner or Jim?
it's
Is
it's
it Nick?
escaping me right now. I don't have it. I don't have it. But
But this
basically,
guy,
I mean,
kind of a mentor,
yep.
maybe not mentor, but a guide for Rodney's career.
Well, he's a true fan of what
Yeah.
Rodney was doing, and there was the issue of like, well, how do we? Because at the time, I think this might have been before he opened his restaurant in Charleston. I think that right?
Oh yeah, he was this
Yeah.
guy. This guy who was his mentor.
He just liked going to
He
Hemingway and eating the food
Well,
there.
he read about him in the New York Times when the New York Times came
Yep.
because somebody in the New York Times did a
John
story on him.
T.
Yeah,
John T. wrote it. He's the guy that started, among others, started the Southern Foodways Alliance.
right.
That's John
Hmm.
T. That's right. He wrote the article for the New York Times.
And I think he was in the documentary too, wasn't he?
I think
What?
he might have been.
Yeah, yeah. That was
Yeah.
the guy who kind of comes out and talks about the history of whole hogs for a minute. But
Okay.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And anyway, he read about Rodney Scott. Of course, Rodney said that after that article, he said people from all over the United States were coming to Hemingway, South Carolina, which apparently
That's
is
right.
it's like an
It's
Ooltewah,
not. Yeah.
Tennessee. It's a wide spot in the road.
That's right.
It's not a
Well, a lot of
gathering place.
people who were around that area, adjacent to Hemingway, they always said, "Oh, don't go to Hemingway. It's dangerous. There's a lot of drugs, and
Yeah,
it's dangerous. Don't go there, by yourself." And he's like, "Actually, it was real quiet, and like not a whole lot really ever happened."
yeah.
So yeah,
And he
but he had to rebuild this pit house, and he didn't have a place to do it, and I guess the suggestion was made that he should kind of go do some pop-ups around, not just around South Carolina, but it seemed like pretty much all over the Southeast at least. And people loved it. They would watch what he did, and they, you know, these. If you think it's rare to go even to the Carolinas now, which it is, and find someone doing that kind of pit style whole hog cooking, imagine, like, I talked to a buddy of mine who wasn't really familiar with any of this before he watched the episode. He's like, "Did you see all that work he was doing? Oh my gosh!" Because even if you have a barbecue place that's doing really good food, if they're serving any kind of volume, they're probably using an Old Hickory or a Southern Pride or
Yep,
some sort of gas assist,
propane over
deal
wood.
to,
Yep.
yeah, just to try to get the volume cranking through, and so he would get like standing ovations from people in these places.
Yeah,
And I think at the end of the day, like it was Rodney Scott in exile. I think they called the
yeah,
tour he
it's
was on.
exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah, and he, I think he said they managed to raise like 80 grand, over time of him putting in the long hours of making the trips and doing the stuff, and um and they were to kind of get that built back again. Yeah.
and they built that new pit room there in Hemingway, and
Hmm.
it was more modern. Had the the compartmentalized pig troughs, and just a lot nicer than what they had been cooking on. And then
Yeah.
this guy talks him into
He kept
leaving.
needling him. Yeah,
Yeah,
his mentor kept saying that through over the years, even during this time where he was trying to do the pop-ups, you should really,
yeah. And
take it to the next level.
I liked what he said. He said after they wrote that article about him, uh, this fellow asked Rodney Scott. He said, "All right, Rodney, after all these newspaper clippings have turned to yellow and they're on the bulletin
Hmm.
boards and
Hmm.
that sort of thing, what about Rodney Scott?" And
Yeah,
Rodney said, "I couldn't answer it because he had no plan." You
that
know,
was
he,
great.
he said nobody in Hemingway, South Carolina had a bunch of restaurants. No kidding.
Oh no.
you know, and uh, and so he goes to Charleston and opens up this restaurant, and apparently it was with his mom's graces and not so much dad, and
Right. Well, I
so
think I think they didn't say this, but they made a point of saying that Rodney was clear about saying it was going to be separate from the family's initial business. It wasn't going, and I don't know the family, and I'm just speculating here, but I wonder if the fact that Rodney's efforts in Charleston were going to feed and be part of the original business and like feed financially
yeah,
into all that. I wonder maybe, look, money and family, that's
right
no
there,
joke.
yeah,
That can,
that
and
can
again, I don't know anything. I'm just you and me talking and speculating. But
that's exactly what I thought.
regardless, there was a little bit of a rift that apparently
Hmm.
formed between he and his father. Yeah,
And as of the end of that documentary, that rift still existed.
that was
And
heartbreaking to hear.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But it's like his buddy said. It's hard to leave your family. It's bad for Rodney, bad for his family, but sometimes you got to go. You got to do what's best for yourself. And
well, it's been good for elevating and making more people aware of that
mhm.
style of cooking. And I'm not trying to de-emphasize the family aspect, but now Rodney's got well, 2018, like you mentioned, he wins the James Beard Award.
Mhm.
And not only does he not have the Charleston location, but now he's got, I think, a Birmingham, Alabama location.
Looking at Atlanta.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I mean, really, right now, as far as black-owned businesses in barbecue, like right now, it's he and Brian Furman with Bees Cracklin right now are the ones that are really kind of, because I think Brian's got an Atlanta and a Savannah, Georgia location.
Mhm.
Um, and they both dealt with fires. I mean, I guess barbecue restaurants doing it old school, that's the risk, right? You know,
Working a
what,
gas station.
I wonder what liability insurance is for a fire. If you tell them you're going to be cooking over, direct heat with pork fat, like I wonder how that goes down. That's gotta be
I
crazy.
can tell you how much it is for a garage that's had a fire.
Oh man, sorry.
They don't give it to you.
No, no, it's like Florida and wind damage.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
bad.
But yeah, how much is hurricane insurance
Yeah,
in
yeah.
in the
Well,
Keys?
we go,
But
oh, right.
the whole Rodney Scott thing was it was him. I think overcoming I don't know, overcoming a guilt of leaving his family maybe, and
Mm,
then but 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 becoming popular, and not only just it's a great place to eat. I mean, by your peers and by every. I mean, I'm talking peers in the United States, North America, with the James Beard Award for the Southeast Chef
right,
of the Year. When you
right.
think of all the restaurants in the southeastern United States, they zero in on Rodney Scott, who they showed making the banana pudding. You know, and
That
you
was
know,
that was a cool
yeah,
scene, wasn't it?
and
You
you
kind
know,
of put that together, yeah.
Kevin, that's what I think of when I think of these guys. When I think of Tootsie and Rodney, you know, they're not working in, you know, they don't have a sous chef. They don't have a, you know, a staff. You know, they're not with the white hats and the, and those guys are great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, these guys, you know, they're up early making the barbecue. You know, smelling like smoke. You know, all right, I got to put that log on there. I'll shovel those coals in there. Let me run in here and peel some potatoes for this potato salad real quick. And you know, they're multitasking back there because they're all family and relative recipes. You know, his
Yeah, from
mother,
the
the mama,
jump for sure.
yeah,
I,
mama's
I
banana
think
pudding.
that's right. I think Rodney's probably got a little more help these days,
Yeah.
rocking.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
'cause
there's no
in
doubt.
fact, yeah. So, but you're right. And I think Rodney specifically now because he has trusted people that are running pits and doing things. Now he can get a little breathing room and a little space to think and plan and continue to grow. I mean, that's the obstacle. I mean, you're a small business owner, man. Like, imagine what you could do if you had a right hand person, male, female, whoever, who could do everything you do as good as you want them to do it, and it would free you up to plan your next move and grow and do whatever. I mean, I don't know where you are with your business on that front, but I gotta imagine that would be a pleasant thing to have handy.
Well, yeah. Anytime you can get somebody you can trust, you know, it boils down to one thing: who you going to trust with the money?
Right.
And I mean that's the bottom line, Kevin.
Yeah.
Who you going to trust with the money? Because at the end of the day, you can say, oh, it's about making that customer happy. It's about, you know, fixing Mrs. Smith's tire. It's about having a good barbecue sandwich for Mr. Jones. But it's about the do re mi. Don't think it's about anything else. It's about the money, and you got to have somebody to trust. And I hope Rodney does have somebody like that.
Oh, I
He's
imagine.
got that
Yeah.
partner. That might be his function in the corporation is to look after the money. Um, but you know, at the end of it, you know, I felt real good, real happy that Rodney had accomplished. I mean, that's the pinnacle of what he does. I mean, you don't get any higher than James Beard Award. That's it. You know, and he's still a young man. You know, he seemed content. Um, you know, with a little regret, but who doesn't among us?
Sure.
Who doesn't?
Sure.
Um,
But you could tell he's not done.
exactly. That's what I was
You
going
know
to.
what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just felt like there's something you could almost he didn't say it, but you could see it in his eyes. You know, tune in 7 more years and they do part two.
Yeah. That's right.
You know,
And
watch.
he's bringing a lot of people along with him, but not in a way that they're hangers on. I mean, I imagine if you're working for a Rodney Scott situation, oh, you're working. Like it's serious and you better be getting after it. And there's no like just showing up and it's going to be fine and you'll just squeak by and come in late every now and again. But if you hang, he seems like the kind of guy that if you hang with him and show him some loyalty and get in there and work, you're going to learn a lot about the craft of
Hmm.
barbecue, right? But you're also going to grow with your opportunities, over time. And I liked that I got that vibe from him.
Well, I think the person who's cooking those hogs in the back, I mean, there's your MVP in the restaurant right there.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that's got to be done, and he has. I mean, the ways he did show a little bit more. They showed a little bit more cooking in that episode
They did.
than they did with Tootsie,
That's
because he
right.
was explaining to his son, and I thought
That
it
was
was,
wonderful.
yeah,
That was so
yeah,
great.
and I thought it was really neat the way he was cutting the hams and cutting the butt area to impose smoke there. He said, you got to get smoke in here. You got to. The only
Mm-hmm.
way you can do that is, cut it here, and he's pulling off the membranes. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting. I still want to know what he does with those heads, because you very seldom see a head. When you're talking whole hog, you can do
Right?
you can. I've seen all the videos and the docs on Sam Jones, and you don't see one head. You
No.
just see all that pig, and that's all. But
And I'm glad they put that in there because when like every year and you should check this out, man. Like in Milledgeville, Georgia, which I think Milledgeville might be like the bird dog capital of like the South or the world or something. But they have a deal where no, I'm sorry, that's Waynesboro. But anyway, the issue is John Jackson with Comfort Farms, a veteran-owned operation. It's like an acute care agricultural center where vets can come and heal and work the farm and do that kind of thing. You know, every year they have a boucherie event in January where they, celebrate all that the farm has raised and process it and deal with it. And it really puts you into a deep understanding of the sacrifices involved in farming and time, effort, labor, and the circle of life aspect that takes place. And the fact that they had the head there in the shot, with the Rodney Scott episode, it's just a reminder that the proteins that are cooked there don't just come from a cardboard tray or a styrofoam
No,
tray at the
no.
supermarket. I mean, I like they included the activity of caring for the animals and the care and attention he was showing his son on how this is what I had to do every day growing
Yep.
up. Like the shoes you're wearing, the life you live right now, that didn't come from nowhere, right?
Right.
So let's talk a little bit more about how all this came to be, kind of thing.
Yeah. That's being a good father.
Absolutely.
Just being a good father. Kevin, it's been a joy,
Yeah, man.
an absolute great time. Um, Everybody, check it out. Netflix, Chef's Table, Tomanetz,
TOMANETZ, that's Dublin,
Tomanetz.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You wonder what is Tomanetz? I mean,
That's,
her
I don't know,
husband.
Czech or some
Texas
like
is weird. They've got a lot of
lots of Germans and Czech
Eastern
and Eastern Europe.
Europeans.
Yeah. That's
Scheiding,
where all that good beer comes
Doug
from.
Scheiding. What's up
That's
with that?
right. Shinerbach.
Yeah,
That's definitely, yeah.
Lennox Hasty and is it Rosalia or Rosalia? Rosalia,
Rosalia and the Yucatan Peninsula, yeah.
Chuk, and
It's like chai chook, yeah,
yeah, that
dude.
was a good
I'm
one.
telling you, that coach Anita Pabilo, that is a process that's really cool, and it reminds you a little bit about what you see even in like Polynesia and the Hawaiian Islands with like in the ground kind of cooking. That's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, all four are good. And like we said at the beginning of the show, it was good. I mean, it was real good to see barbecue people live fire cookers that shown in an elevated light, that they're not just smack talking guys cooking on pellet grills. That there,
That's right.
there really is a craft out there. And
That's right.
Kevin, as I continue my journey through barbecue, I really become more and more it's more and more enjoyable talking about the Rodney Scotts, the Tootsies, the Lennox, the all the even the guys here in local in town, the barbecue guys here that man the pits and the restaurants, and it's a lot of fun to go back and watch them, do what they do for people, because it is a hard job, and
Yeah.
so few of them get rewarded, and it's a very interesting industry that we are fans of, and what
Yeah.
makes it interesting, there's so many facets and so many layers to it, and this is one layer that I'm really glad that Netflix
Yep.
chose to show, and
Well, and
we're all the better
and
for it.
and I'll mention real quick. You shared something with me not long ago about those Saturday mornings that take place at your shop, man. Like people just kind of they're thirsty and hungry for knowledge. They want to
Hmm.
learn. They want to hone their skills.
They want to talk about it. They want to,
Hmm.
what do you use? This is what I do, and somebody will overhear them saying, "Well, this is what I do. Use this."
It's great.
It's fantastic. Kevin, thank you
Yeah,
so much. I sure
yeah, no
appreciate you.
problem. My pleasure.
We'll just do it again.
All
We'll
right.
next good documentary series we'll hook up. All right.
That sounds like a plan.
All right, Kevin. Thank you so much. Kevin
All right.
Sandridge from the Barbecue Beat podcast. You can hear him. You can hear him everywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. Kevin Sandridge, the Barbecue Beat podcast. Tune him in. Lots of good stuff. Kevin's got a vast array of guests, and he's one of the best interviewers in the business. Don't forget, come and see us at the Owl's Nest Barbecue Store, Supply Store, and Pro Shop in Ooltewah if you're traveling up and down I-75. Netflix, Chef's Table. If you get Netflix, watch it. You will not be disappointed. And until next Thursday, fellas. My friends, I bid you farewell, good luck, and good night.
You're like the cool guy in my phone, just so you know. So.